Arsenal are choking the title away, while Inter get a statement win. Leverkusen take down the yellow wall, and Real Madrid slip up again. All this and more on episode 126 of the No Business Soccer Podcast. There's only one thing left to say. Let's dig in. You know, hopefully I don't have to practice this too many more times without my boy hype man Vic, who is still hanging out, having his escapades up in the northern side of the UK. I believe he's in Ireland right now, though, which is part of the UK. You know, that's weird. It's like Great Britain, UK. It's all different things. I couldn't tell you right now. Probably if we sat down and had a couple beers, I'd probably tell you. I can't tell you right now. But either way, welcome back to the No Business Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Snooze. And of course, no hype man Vic, but we do have Danny P and J Fam, the Brainiac, in the back. We're ready to get this thing popping. I know there's so much to talk about. It's probably going to be one of those shows that I'm going to talk way over, especially when it gets to the Prem. Of course, this is our European reach around or European wrap up, whichever way you want to take it. But we have Serie A, a full slate. We have Bundesliga, a full slate. La Liga and the Prem, of course, full slates there as well. And all the storylines that come with it. There's a lot, too. And some heartwarming stories as well, I guess in a weird way, in the Bundesliga. But we'll talk about all of that once we get there. And, of course, we can't pass up the fact that we have the second leg of the UEFA competitions coming up as well. Man, we have so much to talk about. So, without further ado, we're just going to jump right in. And we're going to start in Italy. Hey, I appreciate that because I said my part. I forgot Vic's not here to do the other one. See, producers got my back. That's how it works around here. We start with some news and notes from around Serie A. One big piece that comes through from Italy is that the Juventus head coach Luciano Spalletti has signed a contract extension through the 2028. Spalletti's deal had been due to expire at the end of the 2025-26 season, but the Serie A side confirmed on Friday a 2-year extension had been signed, which is kind of crazy because he was getting to the very, very end of that deal. And usually whenever you see that happen, you see results starting to slip, players starting to one out, things like that. None of that's really at least bubbled up to the surface that we have seen in Juve. So the 67-year-old was appointed Juventus coach in October, following the sacking of one Igor Tudor, who has a special place in my heart. He signed an 8-month deal through the end of the campaign with an option to extend conditional on his side, qualifying for the Champions League. But obviously it didn't matter because he ended up signing for a contract extension through 2028. So congrats to Juve. Congrats to Spalletti. They got their man. Okay, that is it for the news and notes. Let's jump into the top matches from Serie A Matchday 32. And the top, I guess, on the card, if we were talking about like a UFC card or a boxing card, you would have seen Como and Inter, and that would have been the headliner. That would have been the fight to end all fights. And, of course, it did go down to the wire, and it was Inter that got the better of Como. Como 3, Inter 4. This game came so close to being a huge statement win for Como, but instead it ends up being a title decider. And you'll find out why here in a second. Como get the big bad wolf of Serie A and put 2 past them in the first half, thanks to Nico Paz being amazing. We've seen this all season, and he continued it on the biggest stage at the Lake, as we call it, against Inter. But credit to Inter, and specifically to Thuram for not losing their heads. They stayed in it. They end up getting one back, and it felt like as soon as they got that first goal back going into the halftime, that it was just like a gut punch. All right, you got that 2-goal lead going into half. As a Como fan, you probably feel pretty good about things, getting there, talk it out, figure out how you're going to stave them off from coming back in the second half. But that's not what it was, because they ended up getting that goal, and it felt like a gut punch. But again, they lose that 2-goal lead right after because Thuram gets his second goal. He gets a brace in I think is the 49th minute, my notes say. And so, he comes out, gets that goal. And if it was a punch in the gut in the first one, this was definitely a punch to the face, because they come back right away and that 2-goal lead is gone. And then not even 5 minutes after that, I think it was only 4 minutes after that, Dumfries gets a goal. And man, it's 10 minutes later. And that tie was completely turned around. And if you want to call those other ones a punch in the face, a punch in the gut, this one had to be a punch in the dick because it was absolutely over from there. Dumfries gets the knockout blow, scoring his brace. They make it 4-2 in the end, like we mentioned. Como get a penalty in the 89th minute to make it stoppage time interesting, but it was dead in the water by then. Inter have just decided that they were going to turn it on late. They get this dominating win in the end. And I say dominating because it didn't feel close in the second half. If you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, Como, they slip up, and that's the I guess that's the way that it always felt like it needed to go, because I don't want to see this Como team getting into the Champions League and end up slumping and sucking like all these other teams we've seen. Who do we see lately? We saw Girona. Who do we see get in the Champions League? I can't even remember the other times. Oh, Bologna. I mean, just there's teams that have a special season and they get rewarded with the money, but then they end up getting not really that far in the Champions League. And was that worth it? Well, they'd probably say from a business point, yes, but it feels like Como getting further in the Europa League might be cool, at least for us, because we get to cover those matches, and glory is way better than money for our stance. So that's how it ends. Inter just deciding they're going to pull away, and you'll find out why. The next match, top matches to look out for: Atalanta and Juventus. It ends 1-0 for Spalletti, that new shiny contract he got. And this was in Bergamo, as they say. I always thought it was Bergamo, but they said Bergamo. Either way, it's starting to feel like Juve might not have enough. It was starting to feel like they wouldn't be able to catch Como in that race. And of course, we saw what happened with Como. But that fourth spot, we kept telling you for weeks that Como were setting the pace. They were the team to catch. They were the one that had all the momentum and all of the players and all of everything going for them. And they're starting to slowly lose that. And who is there to pick up the pieces? That is Juve. They get a huge win, and Atalanta come out of the gates firing, hitting the bar a couple times, couple near misses. I'm talking about inches away, but Juve weathered the storm. They got a goal against the run of play and were able to see it out and get 3 points on the road. Juve have been the best team in Serie A over the last 4 games, and now they're in the top 4. I would say they're at the top, and I'm not sure they're going to give that spot up. Honestly, I think they might be a little too strong for Como to come back, or whoever else might be in there. We'll find out when we go over the table. And those are your top matches from this past weekend. But let's jump into the rest of the match day. Friday, we had Roma beating Pisa 3-0. Roma dominate Pisa at the Stadio Olimpico. Daniel Malin gets the first hat trick in Serie A this season. And that maybe if my math, or not math, it's 3 goals. I don't know how much math you have to do. But if my data is wrong, let me know. But from what I can tell, this is the very first hat trick in the entire Serie A season so far. And it looks like it's the first one since February 8th of 2025, where Retegui ended up scoring 4 goals. I can't remember who that was against, but he's not even in the league anymore. So that tells you how long ago that was. Just not a goal-scoring type of league here. You know, they get the goals they need to win, and usually it's not from the same person over and over and over again. But in this case, Daniel Malin, he's that man. He's that dude. He's there. He's been the best signing in Serie A since, I guess I'd say since January, but really he's the best signing period. That we could just stop there. He's been incredible since coming over from Villa in January. And now hopefully they find a way to get him permanently, because this dude is the heart and soul of the attacking part of this Roma team. And if you remember, as soon as he came in, they just started firing on all cylinders. They started scoring goals. And they look like they lost their way a bit, and now they're starting to pick it back up. Of course, playing one of the teams at the bottom of the table will help. Okay, we can talk all day about that, but let's move on. We have Saturday, Torino 2, Verona 1. Torino make it back-to-back wins as they try to get to mid-table before the final game, and it means that Verona get their 20th loss of the season. That is insane, 20th. And if you remember, we are in Matchday 32, so they've lost well over half of those games. We have Cagliari 1, Cremonese 0. Cagliari get a massive win in the relegation battles. They pick up their first win since January. 3 points for Cagliari means that they are virtually safe, but Cremonese are still on they're still walking a tightrope, we'll call it, and even more so now because they have 0 margin for error. Milan 0, Udinese 3. And Milan go down at San Siro, and some would say they go down without a fight, because Udinese put 3 past them, and it could have been 5. They could have been way, way worse. This was not a good showing for Milan. Defensively, they were very, very poor. Pulisic still can't score. It is not looking good going into the summer for all of us here that are fans of Captain America in the U.S., but specifically for Milan. I mean, this is not a good way to end the season. The last game was at Atalanta and Juventus. So we move on to Sunday and start off with Genoa beating Sassuolo 2-1. We had 2 players sent off going into halftime for fighting in the tunnel. At least that's what it looked like. They finished 10 versus 10, and Genoa get the better of a Sassuolo team to take their name out of the relegation battle, at least for now. But it looks like the Rossi is going to keep Genoa in the Serie A coming into next season. And the reason why I said that it was such a big win for Inter over Como is because Parma won, Napoli won. Napoli let the lead to Inter slide back to 9 points as they failed to beat Parma. Parma scored within the first 30 seconds of this game. It was really funny if you watch the replay because you look over at the side. Well, they score and then they cut over to Conte, and he's just like not even upset. He's just like, "What happened? What did you guys just do?" And it took them, I believe, until the 60th minute for them to score for, of course, McTominay. And now they don't find another one, and they end up drawing, which means that congratulations, Inter. The Scudetto is over. There's no one that's going to catch them. And that's what made that Como win even more important. Of course, they didn't know that because at the time, when would they play? Yeah, they did know that because they were the next game. I got my times mixed up. Bologna 2, Lecce 0. 14 games without a goal comes to an end for our boy Orsolini. Yes, I did say 14 games without a goal for Orsolini. And I talked him up a lot in the offseason, thinking that he was a hidden gem that was going to be staying for Bologna. And then he goes on a drought like that. He's not having the same season that he did last season, but that's okay. He gets a goal there. They get the nice win. Bologna get back-to-back wins as they try to end the season on a high. We talked about Como and Inter. And then today's match, Fiorentina versus Lazio. And believe it or not, I had to leave before this game ended. So let's check it right now. We're going to do this live. Oh, okay. This is how I figured it in. Fiorentina, Lazio. It ends up 1-0. I watched the first like 10, 15 minutes of it. I had to go. So look at that. Fiorentina 1, Lazio 0, which is like you didn't hear it because we didn't do the show. But Fiorentina, even though both these teams, there are teams, right? This is a matchup that we like to see. Most of the time we want to see a draw because I think both teams have a place in our heart. But Fiorentina, they need every point they can get in this relegation battle. And correct me if I'm wrong, producers, but we do have the table, right? We can pull up the table. Let's do that for Serie. Perfect. Look at this. So even I haven't seen it since this game ended. But, of course, we knew Lazio was going to be mid-table. They're not worried about relegation. But our Fiorentina were. And now with that win, I think we're virtually safe because that is a, 27 to 35. So we're about 8 points. Is that my math? Is that correct? I mean, I believe so. I'm not that good at math. But either way, that's pretty damn good. Fiorentina, look at that. That is amazing. Okay. We're going to move back, though, to the top of the table. Inter, like I mentioned, pretty much going to see it out from here, followed by Napoli, then Milan, then Juve. But, of course, tickling the top 4 is Como, who they've dropped points in back-to-back games and seen them fall from a comfortable spot in 4th, we'll call it, to 5th place, where they still have a good chance. But also, in my humble opinion, I think the Conference League of the Europa League will be just fine. Maybe not for the money's sake, but they'll be just fine there. Okay, now we go to the bottom of the table, and of course you see Pisa and Verona still hanging tight with their tie on 18 points, followed by Lecce, who is 27 points. And this is interesting because 27 points for Lecce, Cremonese on the same amount of points, but with a goal difference, which I believe in Serie A is the way they do it. I know they do it a little different. It might be head-to-head match, something like that first. We'll have that all sorted before we go to the final match days. It actually dictates who is going to stay up and who's going to go down. But for now, just know that Cremonese is above Lecce in the 17th spot, followed by Cagliari with 33 points. And then, of course, Fiorentina right after that. But it's starting to look a little bit more clear. It looks like we're going to have at least a 2-horse race for that last spot in the relegation battle in Serie A. But we'll find out as the season progresses, which isn't too much longer. 6 more games. God, it's crazy. Already coming to an end. Okay, that will do it for Serie A. Fun times. A lot of good games that we had going on there. I can't lie. I was rooting for Como a bit because I felt like if they could get that win, it'd just be a big deal. Little team coming up, and then it would be a little bit more feasible to see them handling the teams that they would find in the Champions League, but they came up short. It is what it is. Okay, that is it for Serie A. We have so much to get to, so let's do it. Let's move on to the Germany, which is the Bundesliga. And there's some cool news coming out of Germany. So we go to the news and notes from around the Bundesliga. Union Berlin have made history by appointing Marie-Louise Eder as their head coach, meaning she becomes the first female to be given the top job in a man's team in Europe's top 5 biggest leagues. Now, it's not saying that there's a smaller league that might have had a female coach, but in the top 5 biggest Europe leagues, she's the first. She's 34 years old, and she's taking over for Stefan Baumgart, who was sacked after the 3-1 loss that Union had to bottom of the table Heidenheim on Saturday. Eder, who was the coach of the under-19 men's team for Union, agreed earlier this month to take over the female head coaching job at the end of the season for Union, but she has 5 games to secure Union Berlin's Bundesliga status. They're in a relegation scrap of sorts. I think they got it. But either way, she's going to come in and be able to right that ship, get them on the straight and narrow. Is that what you say? I always said straight and narrow, but that's not. I don't think that's how you say it. Either way, it's not the first time, though, that Eder has taken over or made history, let's call it, because in January 2024, while serving as an assistant coach to Bielka, is how you say that, she became the first woman to take charge of a men's team in the Bundesliga because she deputized for him as he was suspended for 3 matches. But now she's the first in history to get the full-time gig, even if it is just for these 5 games. It's going to be amazing to watch and see how this team plays and reacts. There's always that new coach bounce, and now good luck to the 34-year-old Marie-Louise Eder. We'll be watching. Good job. That's history right there, boys. Okay, that is it for news and notes around Bundesliga. Let's move to the top matches from Bundesliga Matchday 29. And we start with Dortmund taking on Leverkusen in Dortmund. It was another uninspiring performance from Dortmund, but unlike similar performances, they were not able to find those late goals that pushed them on and spurred them on to a win. Leverkusen weren't much better, though. They just happened to find that goal thanks to a long-range strike, that's how you say that, from Andrich. As we mentioned before, Dortmund, they don't really have anything left to play for. They are out of every competition. They're not winning the Bundesliga, but the 3 points makes it possible, though, that Leverkusen could sneak back into the top 4 and get into the Champions League. And so this was a big game for them, a big result, and you can see it on their faces after the final whistle. Moving on to the rest of the matches that took place, we had Friday, Augsburg 2, Hoffenheim 2. Augsburg whiff at the chance to win this game after Claude Maurice skies a penalty in the 84th minute when it was all level. So it's 2-2. He has a chance to make it 3-2 and win that game, and he skies it. He doesn't do it. It was not fun. But fun fact for this, all 4 goals were scored in the first half. So I would say that's equivalent to like clocking in and just getting everything done and then like coasting the rest of the shift. That's pretty much what this one felt like. And then Claude Maurice, he had the chance to change it all. I don't have a perfect example of how that one, I'll think of one and I'll put it in there. But either way, Augsburg 2, Hoffenheim 2. Sad times for Hoffenheim, man. They were doing so well, and now they're starting to slide. These results, we called it. We said it'd probably happen. Saturday, we had Wolfsburg 1, Eintracht Frankfurt 2. Frankfurt got 3 much-needed points, and it's at the expense of the Bundesliga punching bag that is Wolfsburg, who are all but assured going down at this point. RB Leipzig 1, Mönchengladbach 0. Despite a late flurry of chances for Gladbach late in the game, Leipzig got 3 deserved points to take another, and it's thanks to another spectacular goal from Diamande. And if you haven't seen some of these goals that this guy scored this season, they're awesome. This guy's really good. But again, like most of the people here in the Bundesliga, he's only going to stay for a little bit of time. I bet at this point, Liverpool's going to pay an astronomical amount of money for him and take him away, and then he's going to be okay for them next season. I mean, just speaking from experience from what we've seen this season, okay? Dortmund, Leverkusen was next, and we talked about that one already. So Heidenheim 3, Union Berlin. Touched on this a second ago when we were talking about our girl Eda getting the job. But if you're a Union Berlin fan, you cannot lose, or if you're Union Berlin in general, you cannot lose to a team like Double H 3-1. That cannot happen. And since it did, it cost their manager the job, and now they're making history in a better way. So that's a cool story. And we'll see how everything turns out next week. St. Pauli, Bayern Munich. Oh, man, I missed the score on this one. I believe it's 5-0, though, and you will correct it on the table here in a second. But either way, Bayern might be the best team in Europe, and they're firing on all cylinders. And yes, it was a 5-0. I just didn't put it in my notes here. But they won this game 5-0 while resting players for their Champions League tie, and that's insane. I mean, not the whole team. There's other teams who completely swap players, but just know that not everyone that needed to start for Bayern did, and they still won 5-0. It's insane what they're doing. On Sunday, Cologne 3, Werder Bremen 1. Cologne, I always get tripped up. Which one do I say? Which one do I do? We'll just do Cologne. Got their first win in 9 Bundesliga matches, and they do it in style. This was a big match in the relegation battle, and Cologne have given themselves some breathing room for the time being. VfB Stuttgart 4, Hamburg 0. It's a big bounce back from Stuttgart after that disappointing loss to Dortmund last time out. 4-0, and they are flying. And this, after watching this, really, I just wish that they wouldn't have been knocked out in the Europa League, because it would have been amazing to see how far they could go. We know how far they went, but I'm saying I just feel like they could have done so much more. They just had a bad run at it against Porto, I believe it was. Anyway, this team's fun to watch. Mainz 0, Freiburg 1. My 2 pet teams coming into the season in the Bundesliga, and the result means that Freiburg are now legitimately in the European conversation. Mainz are mid-table, and that's much better than fighting relegation where they were before. And we'll see if they continue to get some results here and there. But I think Freiburg have at least announced themselves in the European competition contention. Okay, that is it for match day 29. Let's go to the table, and we'll see where everything shakes up after that. Oh, I had to pull up my own here because my eyes, we talked about this before, like behind, what do we say, breaking the fourth wall here. I'm the only one that doesn't have LASIK surgery. Danny P and JFam decided that they were going to do that and just kind of break the bro code of glasses. And now they like to brag about it a lot. But anyway, there's some muscles in your eyes apparently. And I think mine aren't good because even with contacts, I can't see that table. So I have to bring up my own here. Sometimes I overshare, and that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Obviously, we know Bayern Munich are going to win this league. They've been winning this league since August. But then next we have Dortmund on 64 points, who are really separating themselves except for this loss. They were on a great run of form before that. Stuttgart, followed by Leipzig, is your top 4 teams. Of course, tickling the top 4. Sorry, got to do it. Tickling the top 4 is Leverkusen, and right under them is Hoffenheim. And I got to say that because it's only 1 point. I think Hoffenheim are done, though, at this point. They've only got 1 win in the last 5 Bundesliga games. Looks like they're going to be probably fighting for the Conference League spot. We'll find out. Going to the bottom of the table, though, we've already known that Heidenheim has gone for a while, although they are catching up to Wolfsburg. We'll see if they end up getting the last spot. It doesn't matter. Both of them are going down, but we'll see what happens. So Wolfsburg, Heidenheim are their 17-18 spot, the 2 going down more than likely. And that last spot, of course, in the Bundesliga is a relegation playoff spot, which means that they'll have to play the team that wins, or I can't remember exactly. I think it's because there's 2 teams, so maybe it's like the third team that doesn't get in, that doesn't get automatically promoted, I think is how it works. But either way, right now that team would be St. Pauli, who has to play a game to get back into the Bundesliga. But they're only on 25 points, and behind them is Werder Bremen on 28, Mönchengladbach 30, Cologne 30. What is that? 5 points from Cologne and Mönchengladbach, Cologne, whatever. That I want to say that's not too far off. They can get those teams. But Werder Bremen, 3 points. That is very possible. It's going to be fun to watch. We'll see if they can get it done. And not every team's going to beat St. Pauli 5-0. That was just a Bayern thing. So they might get better next week. Okay. That is it for the Bundesliga. 24 minutes in. Look at us. We are flying through this, having some fun in the process. We got a lot to talk about. So let's go to Spain and let's go to La Liga. We have some history as well in La Liga to talk about. Not as cool as the first female head coach or head manager ever in the top 5 big leagues in Europe. But we have the first ever retro match day that took place this weekend in Spain in, I believe it was the first 2 divisions. The initiative transformed the competition, featuring vintage kits special match balls, throwback referee kits, as well as 1990s style TV graphics to create immersive, nostalgic experience. And if you didn't know this, like I did not know this. I just started watching a game and was like, why are we looking at weird graphics? Because it's not like the crisp. When I was saying graphics, I'm meaning like the team and the score and the time. Like all of that was very dated. It looked like the only thing I think is like a old school 90s digital watch kind of thing. It looked really like that. Like you're playing, like your watch on Pokemon. You know that one game where you have that watch in Pokemon? I don't know what I'm talking about. I've never played Pokemon, but for the nerds that have played it, you know what I'm talking about. And then you see these kids, and they're all crazy. And then the refs have like these weird 90s kids too. I don't know. It was cool knowing it now, but going into it not knowing this was happening, as a weird thing to see. The only piece of feedback I would give La Liga is that everything was awesome. Vintage kits, the ball was different, the ref thing. I mean, that was really cool. We don't need to go back in the 90s with our TV graphics, though. Leave those alone. Just have like a sign next to it is like retro weekend. I don't know. Why do we got to go back? I think what it did show is the fact that we should be grateful for what we do have. But you don't want your consumers to be seeing that. Just keep the graphics as they were. Everything else is fine. There's some cool kits too. Go check out the highlights, or you can probably just Google retro kits from this weekend in La Liga. Fun times. Okay, that is it for the news and notes around La Liga. Let's move in to the top matches for Matchday 31. And we start off, well, actually, the main one everybody's talking about. Real Madrid won, Girona won, and that was our Friday matchup. And it was a match that had the Real Madrid fans saying, "Hecho de huevos, way." I don't know if they said way, but they definitely said "Hecho de huevos," meaning have some balls. Go for it. You're freaking Real Madrid. Go win this thing. Go after it. And they just did not. There was no effort after, I don't even remember, a certain minute. It just felt like they were giving up. But like many games this season, Los Blancos just didn't have that next gear. They didn't have what they needed to get the job done. And to be fair to them, Mbappe, he got elbowed in the head and was bleeding everywhere, and they didn't give the pen, which, hey, that's going to happen. But you're Real Madrid. Don't worry about that. Go get 17 goals like you usually do in a game. I mean, you have Vinny Jr. and Mbappe, Valverde. You have all these people on this team, and you couldn't get it done. It's just, I mean, of course, Valverde does end up getting the goal for them, so maybe I shouldn't say his name. He did his part, but it just feels like this Real Madrid team aren't up to par right now. Maybe it's the coach, maybe it's the team. I don't know what you want to call it. Either way, they end up drawing with Girona 1-1, and the title race is done. There's no way that they're going to come back from this. I think it all comes down for Real Madrid now to go to Munich on whatever it is, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, and come back from a 2-goal deficit against Bayern Munich, which that is that's harder to think that they'll do. I don't want to say coming against Barcelona because that's pretty much impossible. Let's just put it this way. It's not going to happen. And now this is going to be clipped and it's going to happen. We'll find out. Either way, Harry Kane, let's do this. Real Madrid, not a good time for them. Okay, let's move on. Saturday, Real Sociedad 3, Alaves 3. This was a crazy game where Alaves took the lead twice, and both times La Real leveled it before finally getting the go-ahead goal in the 60th minute. But in fitting fashion, Alaves scored deep into stoppage time to split the points, and it's a vital point in the relegation battle for Alaves. Great game if you like seeing goals. Some people like seeing defense. Maybe a 1-0 is your thing. Don't watch this one. But this was a lot of fun. Elche 1, Valencia 0. Elche get the 1-0 win over Valencia, and just when you thought that Elche were dead in the water, they've got 6 points from the last 3 games, and it's now 3 points from them in 18. It's now 3 points from them in 18th to Rayo all the way in 13th. Crazy stuff. The bottom of the table is getting very tight in La Liga, and it's going to be really cool to see how it plays out. I just realized I put Elche 1, Valencia 0 twice, like right after each other. That's because usually Hype Man Vic's here and he says something different. It's all good. We're moving on. Barcelona 4, Espanyol 1. Barca rotated some defensive players, but still had their main attacking threats out there, and that's all they needed to get past their crosstown rivals. Yamal is just absolutely incredible, and we say it so much on this podcast, but it's like he's on the way to winning his 3rd La Liga title, and he's only 18 years old, which means, yes, he won one when he was 15, something around that time frame. I don't know exactly, based off of what month he was born and all blah, blah, blah. Either way, just know third La Liga title, and he's only 18 years old. It's sometimes you forget how young he is when he's playing and how special it is to see what he's doing at the level that he's doing it. Because we've had players that have come through and been great, but he's great now. He's 18. He's already doing it. He might be one of the best players for a very, very long time, but he's already that, and he's only 18 years old. Incredible stuff. Sevilla 2, Atletico Madrid 1. Sevilla take advantage of a rotated Atleti side, and it really helped the relegation odds because of it. Simeone rotated 10 of his 11 starters. The only person that started still that is one of the main starters was their keeper. Everyone else was rotated for this match, and so Sevilla get much needed 3 points. And they're getting ready for Atleti's getting ready for the Champions League. Sevilla is just trying to survive. It feels a bit like in fantasy football where you have a team that's not paying attention anymore because they've been eliminated from the playoffs, and they're just like, I don't care. So then they don't start players, and then you have a person trying to get into the playoffs who gets an easy win. That kind of stuff that pisses you off. This is what it felt like watching Atleti not take this game serious, really, and letting Sevilla get these 3 points. Not fair. Sunday, Osasuna won, Real Betis won. Neither team are in great shape, and a draw was fitting for them as an outcome, as a result. But the best thing I can say is our boy Anta Budimir continues his hot streak with another goal. But other than that, not really much to talk about there. Mallorca 3, Rayo Vallecano 0. Mallorca really said, we're not done yet. And they went out there and they won 3 of their last 4 games. And they really shot up the table from 14th to 14th from the relegation spots. And it's really cool to see. Rayo might have had one eye on Europe already, but they definitely didn't rotate. Certainly not as much as other teams did, but they're only 3 points from Elche and 18, so they really can't take their eye off the ball that much. They got to get back in there and figure it out. But of course, maybe they're trying to get a little piece of hardware. There's nothing wrong with that. Celta Vigo 0, Real Oviedo 3, which is another 3-0. Just didn't expect. And it was a great result for Oviedo, but they have to be absolutely pissed. They won this match, but so did basically everyone else that's directly above them in the table. We'll see that here in a moment. They've only lost once in 5 games for a team at the very bottom of the table. And then Levante went and did the same exact thing, and Elche find themselves in great, and of course, Elche find themselves in great form right now as well. It's just all around bullshit if you're an Oviedo fan to see what has happened. But when we go to the table, you'll see how competitive it is, really from top to bottom. Incredible stuff. Athletic Club 1, Villarreal 2. It's another disappointing week for Athletic Club as they fall at San Mamés, and they've now lost 4 of their last 5 games, just really falling apart all over. Nico Williams still in doubt to play for Spain in this World Cup. Athletic Club got nothing to play for. It's just a wash, a season that's a wash at this point. Bad vibes all around. They were whistling and booing at the full time. I mean, what can we say? There's not a lot going on there for them. And then, of course, we had the Levante game. And the last time I saw it, we'll find out. Of course, these games are a little later now because, stupid time change here. I don't know if everybody does this. But we have like daylight savings and spring forward and all that. And yeah, it's done. And look at this. I missed the last part of this great game. It ends up being Levante 1, Getafe 0. At the time I was watching, it was 0-0. And so I didn't really think much of it. I thought it'd end up being a draw. But it was the 83rd minute goal from Levante, and they get that win over Getafe, which is so weird because Getafe, they have been beating everyone. And of course they go and lose to a team like Levante. So whatever, I guess it is what it is. So with that, let's look at the table. Let's see where things shake out after match day 31. Boom. Thank you, sirs. And so, of course, at the top, we mentioned it. Barcelona getting that top spot, 79 points. Real Madrid, 9 points behind them with 7 games to play. That's not going to happen. Villarreal, 61 points in the 3rd spot. 9-point gap between them and Real Madrid. It doesn't really matter if they catch them. They're not going to catch Barca, but Real Madrid don't want to be less than 2nd at least. Atletico Madrid, 57 points in the 4th spot, trailing them. Big gap, 11 points to Real Betis with 46 points, who's, I guess we would say, tickling the top 4, but, that's a big gap. Moving down, we have the fight for relegation. I mentioned it earlier, how you usually don't see teams at the bottom of the table only having 1 loss in 5 games. And this shows you the table you're looking at shows 6. The one I'm looking at shows 5. But either way, you can see Real Oviedo get back-to-back wins and still at the bottom of the table. Levante's win over Getafe that we just talked about leaves them on 29 points. And then you have Elche with 32, which means that from 32 and 18th all the way till Rayo Vallecano in 13th with 35 points. I mean, that is a 3-point gap between, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that are all in the relegation battle. That is crazy stuff for being only 7 games away from the end of the season. Crazy, crazy stuff. A lot of good games left to be had. And we still have a Classico coming up as well. I think it's in May sometime. So not like around the corner, but, it's close enough. Okay. That is it for La Liga. And let's keep chugging right along. Had a great time watching some of these games. Go check out some of those retro kits. Good times. Let's now move on. Oh, we got some juicy stuff to talk about here. We are going to England. We're going to the Prem. And didn't really have a lot of news and notes from around the Prem, so we're just going to jump right into our top matches from Premier League Matchday 32. And, of course, we start with the match that our boy was at, his very first Premier League match, and that was Liverpool 2, Fulham 0. He got to watch it at Anfield. Our boy Hyman Vic, I know he was so happy. That boy was walking out of there with a heart that is full. I don't know what saying. There's a Texasism in there somewhere. I could say bless your heart, but that doesn't mean what you probably think it means. Our boy, he got to see his team get a win, and they get goals from their soon-to-be past and their future, because they got goals from Salah and Rio Ingaboa, or however you say his last name. But we'll call him Rio here. And the goal from Rio was sick. He absolutely awesome. I want to ask him, actually. We'll ask him when he comes back. I believe he's back Thursday. Maybe he's back before that. I don't know. But either way, we'll ask him where he was for that goal, because I watched it from my phone in an HEB parking lot, if you have to know. And it was amazing. The dude's just trying to take on everyone, and he does. And he gets a goal. And I believe he's only 17 years old. Crazy, crazy stuff. Plus, he gets to see Salah score. He hasn't done a lot of that this season, and he got to see Salah do it before he goes on to pastures anew. Is that good for you? Okay. Either way, good game. Fulham, they're doing that thing where you think they're going to get into Europe, then they end up losing a bunch of games at the end of the season, and it never works out. Liverpool deserved the win. Moving on, Arsenal 0, Bournemouth 2. Absolutely crazy stuff right here. There's no way around it, though. Arsenal, they are in big, big trouble now. They already were mentally. We had to see how it would play out in the Prem, because they had lost some games, but it wasn't necessarily anything to do with their Premier League title form. And now we're looking at them, and they're losing, and their heads are gone, and they don't look good. The vibes don't feel good. Nothing is right with Arsenal at the moment. They had a 9-point gap to City, and City play them next. So if you haven't heard, which I know you have heard, that means that City, if they beat them, would only be 3 points back. But then you have to take in the fact that City are they have a game in hand, which means that if they win that one, we're square at the top of the table. It's absolute insanity. This is unthinkable a month ago. But if you watch the game, you saw a very poor Arsenal side who just couldn't figure things out. The Cherries took them apart too easily. And now, obviously, it's a game where all the pressure is on the Gunners. And that means that the Cherries are playing on house money. They could do whatever they wanted because they could play free. It's kind of like Arsenal were in their own heads, and they knew it. So they went at them and said, hey, we're going to give you everything, and you're going to have to come out of your shell a bit. And they weren't able to do that. But I guess all of the pressure, all that stuff, that should be just for tabloids. That shouldn't be stuff that actually happens to professional players, at least in my mind. Of course, I'm not a professional player. What do I know? It just feels like they're mentally stronger. Like we talk about them not being, but that's just noise. That's for the birds. And yet it happened out on that pitch. The manager for the Cherries, though, for Bournemouth, Iraola. I always want to say Areola, but it's not that. Or he was seen at the FA Cup match that they played, Arsenal played against Southampton. And he was there watching. And, of course, Arsenal lost to Southampton. And maybe he found something there. Maybe he was out there scouting and he figured out how to beat Arsenal, and now City will have them on a platter. I don't know. But either way, crazy, crazy stuff to see Arsenal bottling it, as they say in the UK. But maybe not too crazy, because a lot of Arsenal fans have been saying this for a while. And I think it was more like a hedge on their heart, like, oh, we couldn't possibly win it. And now it's actually happening, and it's like, oh, maybe they're right. But I'm just a Spurs fan, so what do I know? We're about to get relegated. So let's talk about it. Let's go into the rest of the games. Friday, we had West Ham 4, Wolves 0. West Ham have really been playing better than their spot in the table has said, and that's been for weeks. But this was the first sign of them showing that they're actually not going to be relegated. They move out of the bottom three and it should be able to survive from here. Saturday, the early kickoff was Arsenal-Bournemouth. So we move on to Brentford 2, Everton 2. Dudesbury Hall, as we call him here on the No Business Soccer podcast, comes in clutch to salvage a point on the road for Everton against a very good, pretty good Brentford side. This keeps both teams in the hunt for Europe, but now it's confirmed top five are in the Champions League. So now it's pretty good odds that one of these teams can get in if they have just a little bit more form. We'll be hoping that Everton do for our boy Danny P. Burnley 0, Brighton 2. Brighton would be the top team in the form table, and they are making a very late charge for Europe as well. Maybe they might be able to catch Everton and Brentford. Who knows? We'll find out. But they definitely will continue this streak because they play Spurs up next. Liverpool and Fulham went at it, and we talked about that. So we move to Sunday, where Crystal Palace beat Newcastle 2-1. Mateta, the best thing I could describe it, or the best way I could describe him, is he is a grown-ass man. The substitute comes on. He turns the game around. He gets the crowd into it. He's throwing his hands in the air, making the crowd jump up. He scores a brace. He sends Newcastle back to the north of London with their tail between their legs. Awesome to see. There's worrying times, though, for Eddie Howe, who now I thought before he was going to be perfectly fine, and now at this point in the season feels like he won't be at Newcastle if he continues this trend. I thought that this would be another big step in the progression for this project with Newcastle, and really instead it looks like they're going to be looking for a new manager this summer. Sunderland 1, Tottenham 0. Let's talk about it. De Zerbi's first game in charge, it wasn't a complete disaster, but it was a must-win, or as must-win as you can get for a manager's first game, and they just didn't win again. It's simple as that. With other results around them, though, that's what makes this feel like a huge loss for Spurs, because going to the Stadium of Light, only a couple of teams have won there. So it's not like it was expected, but because of everything that's going on around them and other results that happened, it just feels like it's a lost season. And I was talking with the bros before the pod started. It's starting to feel real now that Spurs are going down. I think I said about a month ago that I thought that they would, that just the way the vibes were, just the way it felt, they just didn't seem like a team that you would look at and say, yeah, this team's going to make it out. It just, if you strip away the name, the history, the stadium, everything, and you just looked at the form and just the facts and the stats, this team is horrible. And that is a team that everybody would have written off by now. And I think most people probably have at this point, except for us Spurs romantics. But either way, you strip everything away, that team's going down. And so now you add in the names. And so we're starting to say, yeah, Spurs, there's no way they can go down because they're so big. And that's just not how this works. The mid-table teams, the teams that are coming up from the championship, everyone is at a different level now. It's not the same game where it was like a top six, or you talk about the big six in the Prem. It's not the same game anymore. Spurs are one of the worst teams in the Prem, and they look like, and they feel like a team that needs to be relegated. And I don't say needs lightly, because that is the team that I support. It's just, if you see this team and you didn't know it was Spurs, you'd say, yeah, that they don't deserve to be in the Prem. And unless things change drastically, I just don't see it happening. We take on Brighton and then Wolves, and if you don't get at least a win from one of those games, it's over. It's done. Especially whenever you find out some of the other results that happened, and we'll get into those in a second before I cry. Nottingham Forest won. Aston Villa won. Neither side was great, but it's a better result for Forest as they say 3 points clear of the drop and 1 point further away from Spurs. Villa are basically guaranteed Champions League next season, so it's all good for them. But Forest, man, it is a vital, vital point in the fight for relegation. Chelsea 0, Manchester City 3. City and Chelsea played a pretty even match for 45 minutes, and then the second half started and Ryan Cherky took over and started making things work, making things click for this City side. This City team are showing something that they hadn't really shown most of the season, which is that clinicalness, or whatever you want to call it. The way that they can just take over games and score goals in bunches. They've had this in other seasons, which is why we all assumed that they would go on a late charge and not lose any games for a while. And they're doing just that. And they look like they're going to go on to at least give Arsenal the toughest run for their money that we've seen in a while. Not that Arsenal have won in a while, but I mean this season. It just didn't feel like this was going to be a title race. It just felt like Arsenal were racing to the finish. And now it's everything's up in the air, especially going into this big match where if you're City, you just get one more win. You feel like Arsenal are ready to crumble and you got it in the bag. But on the other hand, we'll talk about it in the preview, but on the other hand, if Arsenal can just get their shit together for one game and beat City, that's done. It's title's over. They could win the title, not factually, but you get my point on the weekend, and we'll see if they can do that. It doesn't feel like it right now because City are on fire. And then the game that happened today, which was the game that I did watch because it meant the most to me as a Spurs fan. It was a huge result in the fight for survival for Leeds. It's Leeds' first win at Old Trafford in 45 years. It ends 2-1 to Leeds over Manchester United, if I didn't say that. And they are now 6 points clear of the bottom three, which is just devastating because that was the one team that everyone assumed that if Spurs didn't go down, that Leeds might. And now they go and beat a team that Michael Carrick had playing spectacularly all season since he came in there. And they end up winning. For 45 years, they hadn't won there, and they decided to win this time. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. West Ham get a win. Nottingham Forest get a point. Leeds beat, man, this is just insane. It's like the freaking universe is conspiring against Spurs to send them down. Everything bad is happening. Romero gets pushed from the back. He gets concussed or whatever happened to him. He's out for the season, runs into the keeper. It's just everything is falling apart. I'm crashing out right now. Is that what the kids would say? You're crashing out. I don't care. It sucks. I don't know what's going to happen. It's not like this has been a thing. We always are taught that when you come from a U.S. sports fandom into the Prem, that there's a thing called relegation. But usually you pick a team in the top half of the table. You don't have to worry about it. And so now it's going to become a reality more than likely. And I'm going to have to watch the championship. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out. But it is feeling like Spurs are just getting beat up in every corner, on and off the pitch. And I mean off pitch as in like they don't do their job, but we're hoping that someone else doesn't do a job worse, if that makes sense. And then, no, everyone goes and wins and gets points. And, you know, if Vic was here right now, he'd be like, shut up. This isn't a Spurs podcast. So I'll shut up for now because we do have one more thing to talk about. So before I continue to freak out, let's go to the UEFA competitions. You know what? I forgot to do the table. That's how mad I was just right now. I crashed out, as they say, and didn't do the table. It doesn't matter what segment it is. Just pull up the table real quick. We'll talk about it. Who cares? I'm going to do it. That's my bad. Anyway, you look at the top of the table, you'll see what I was talking about. Arsenal taking on Man City coming up, but there's a 6 point gap between Arsenal in first and Manchester City in second. That is, of course, they're playing, and then City have a game in hand. We talked about that. Manchester United get that loss today, but they're still sitting in third place, looking pretty for some Champions League qualification, followed by Aston Villa, who are on the same amount of points, 55. And that's followed by Liverpool, who's on 52 points. That's a little bit closer to the team that's just below them, but Chelsea, who's tickling the top five, they have 48 points, which you look at and say, yeah, it's only 4 points from Liverpool. Why wouldn't they be in the race? Look at their form. what is that? I see 4 losses in the last 6. I mean, just not good at all for them. They are they're flaming out. Best way I could put it. But then, of course, we go to the bottom of the table, and this is just good old stuff to talk about. Wolves, 17 points, catching up. They're going to be relegated, of course. They had a good run there, as you can see, 3 unbeaten games, but that did end this weekend with West Ham, who, decided they're going to be really good all of a sudden, win 4-0. Burnley, they're in the 19th spot, followed by Spurs. That's your bottom 3. Tottenham Hotspur. Cool stuff there, bud. Spurs haven't won in forever, so who cares? West Ham right above them, though, with 32 points. Right above them, Nottingham Forest, and then, of course, Leeds with 36 points sitting in 15 spots. So that relegation battle really comes down to Forest, West Ham, and Spurs now, unless something drastically changes. We'll find out what happens. Hopefully it doesn't take until the very last day, because that would be very unnerving. I know that our boy, Danny P had to live through it, and his team ended up staying up. Doesn't feel like I'll have the same luck, but we'll find out. Okay, whatever. Moving on to the UEFA competitions. We already did the thing, so we can just pull up let me pull up my score. Let's start the Conference League, because in the Conference League, we have the second leg of the quarterfinals. And if you don't remember who those teams were, we had AZ Alkmaar, who are going to Shakhtar, or who are playing Shakhtar Donetsk, and they have a 3-goal. They allowed 3 goals, so Shakhtar Donetsk has a 3-goal advantage. AEK Athens taking on Rayo Vallecano, who, as we mentioned, they lost this past week in La Liga, but they did take a 3-0 win going into the second leg, so they will be on the road, but they are sitting pretty. They should be able to get that done, even if it is a road game against a tough Greek side. I'm assuming Greek. Athens, that's Greece, but, could be wherever. I should know that. Strasbourg taking on Mainz, and this game is in France, and that is a 2-0 advantage to Mainz. And even though Mainz lost to Freiburg, looks like they're still tracking to make it into the semifinals of the Conference League, which would be freaking awesome. Be amazing to see. Of course, Strasbourg were the darlings of the Ligue 1 last time, as we mentioned. And so it's a good matchup. We'll see if Mainz can keep it up. And, be fun. A lot of 3-0s here. I'm just noticing that. I don't even know if I noticed this when we talked about it last time. Maybe we didn't talk about it. But either way, Fiorentina taking on Crystal Palace, and this one will be happening in Florence, and Crystal Palace have a 3-0 advantage. So really some dominant first legs in the quarterfinals of the Conference League. 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, and then a 2-0 for Mainz. So we'll see if those change. Going to be hard. Those are hard deficits to overturn. We'll find out. Now moving on to the Europa League. And I put the wrong one there, so give me 2 seconds. When things change and Vic's gone, it just throws my whole day off, It's like my sidekick. He'd probably not like that. He's my right-hand man. How about that? Okay. We have Celta Vigo taking on Freiburg, and Freiburg have a 3-0 lead over Celta, who also lost 3-0 at the weekend. So maybe they're just looking out for them 3-0s. I don't know. It doesn't look good for Celta. Real Betis taking on Braga. That is 1-1. Everything to play for there. That, of course, that second leg is in Seville. So that'll be fun. Almost said Sevilla, but that is what the city is called. It's called Sevilla in Spanish. Nottingham Forest taking on Porto. That is 1-1, and that will be a fun one to see how it ends. For Spurs' sake, let's see Nottingham Forest move on so they continue to have more games. Not that would matter, because they played a hell of a game before Spurs played them, and then they beat Spurs. Was it 2-0, 3-0, whatever the hell it was? This isn't a Spurs podcast. Get over it. Aston Villa taking on Bologna, and Aston Villa have that 3-1 advantage over Bologna going into that second leg, and that does take place at Villa Park. See how that one ends. Champions League, where the champions are made. That is Atletico Madrid taking a 2-0 lead over Barcelona into the Metropolitano. I think it's called Wanda anymore, but it's just the Metropolitano. But they'll be playing in Madrid with a 2-0 lead over Barcelona. Liverpool, they are playing at Anfield, but they have a PSG team who have a 2-goal lead. And I was listening to a lot about this one because a lot of English pundits, and of course that's biased, right? Because they're English. They're saying don't count out Liverpool. Those what do they call them? European nights, and everything can happen, and whatever. I think PSG are just too good. Actually, again, breaking the fourth wall. Whenever our boy was heading to Anfield, he was just trying to figure out which game he should go see. If he should go see a Premier League game against Fulham, or if he could see the Champions League game. And, I've seen a Spurs game where they lost, and I've seen a Spurs game where they won. And I just said, well, I'm sure Anfield will be more fun if it's a winning atmosphere, just from what I've seen and experienced. And he said, I think that they'll come back against PSG like they did against, who is it? Barcelona, I believe it was. And my rebuttal was that there's no more Divock Origi. Origi is not there anymore. And he said, damn, you're right. So he didn't end up going to that game. He ended up going to Fulham, as we talked about. And I don't even know if that's actually why he didn't. I know that's why he didn't, but I'll claim that. Either way, if Liverpool end up coming back, I'll feel he'll be happy either way, but I'll definitely be like, damn, I messed up that one. I don't think they will. Bayern 2, Real Madrid 1. I thought it was 2-0. Oh, well, they got 2-1. That's not too bad. Real Madrid have a chance to turn this one back. It's tough whenever you have to go to Munich to do it, but if there's a team in this competition specifically, not necessarily saying that Real Madrid have done it this season, but just in general, they are the masters of the Champions League. If anybody can turn around a tie, it's definitely Real Madrid. But this Bayern side are just so darn good. I'm excited to see this. A 1-goal lead for a team as good as Bayern are. We'll find out if they can get it done. And then, of course, Arsenal taking on Sporting. This is at the Emirates. They have a 1-0 lead going into this second leg. And that might be all they need because, again, the way they play, they can kind of stand off a bit, probably get a goal from a set piece and just kind of sit comfortable with a 2-0 lead. But you don't want the Sporting side to get going early. The Sporting side are really good. And if you remember in the first leg, they had multiple chances within the first, I believe it was 20, 25 minutes, multiple chances that just barely missed, or else it could have been a completely different tie. You don't want that to happen, especially with the way that things are, the atmosphere and the vibes are feeling at the Emirates right now, just with the impending doom, I guess we'll call it. It's a metal band if you've heard of them. But the impending doom that is coming around, shrouding this Arsenal squad, you don't want to get them behind to a team in the Champions League, especially to Sporting. Like if they lose to Barca, Liverpool, PSG, whatever, Real Madrid, any of these other teams, I think most of their fans would probably be upset but be okay with it. Not to Sporting. In their minds, that is not acceptable, and I understand it. I'm looking forward to all these games. I hope you are too. We'll check them out, and we'll definitely recap them coming up this Thursday. So, DJ, play our music. I think we're going to get out of here, guys. It's almost an hour of me just talking to you. Hopefully, my voice sounds better this time, and that's not even hopefully. I know that's what happened. But either way, I believe Hype Man Bick will be back. So I'm going to do his part for him. Like and subscribe. Go to all these things down here. Check us out. We have a lot of content coming out. A lot of great things coming from the No Business Soccer podcast. I'm your host, Snooze, and we'll see you again next time.